Hello, and thanks for joining us this morning on VOP This Morning. My name is Moses Humphrey, and we'll be going into the papers shortly to talk about stories making headlines. But on the show today, we also do have two topics that we will be talking about, and we have guests coming in. Now, President-elect Bola Tinubu wants Nigerians to ignore questions about the soundness of his health. But why aren't the questions going away? Well, that's our first topic for discussion this morning. Plus, the crisis in the Labour Party appears to be getting only worse. Well, we'll head into the headlines first, and thereafter, the conversation will get underway. But do remember to like, share, and subscribe to our social media pages on YouTube. We are Voice of the People TV, and on Instagram and Twitter, it is VOP TV Live. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we get into newspaper headlines. Stay with us.
Road signs are defined as symbolized illustrative guidance for road users for safer and more convenient traveling. If you drive a car, ride a bike, or walk, you must obey all the road signs in Nigeria. Now, these are regulatory road signs and they are mandatory. The one-way traffic sign. The one-way traffic sign is a regulatory sign. Drivers encountering a one-way sign must travel in the direction that the sign is pointing. One-way signs designate the direction in which traffic is traveling. Drivers must not travel in the opposite direction of the one-way sign due to the risk of a head-on collision. This sign points to an emergency diversion route that guides traffic around the closed section, bringing it back onto the same road further along its length. This speaks for itself. It's the end diversion. This sign informs the road user of the end of the emergency diversion route. This is the roundabout sign. This sign advises that you are approaching a roundabout, so drive slowly as you approach. The compulsory cycle track sign. This sign indicates the route cyclists must take. Cycle lane road signs are essential to cyclists, pedestrians, and motorists. This divided two lanes, two-way ahead sign. This sign indicates that two traffic lanes are separated ahead. Two lanes, two-way ahead sign. This sign indicates that two traffic lanes are not separated ahead. Four lanes, undivided two-way ahead. This sign informs the road user that there are four lanes undivided for both directions of traffic. Divided four lanes, two-way ahead. This sign informs the road user that four lanes are divided for both traffic directions. The speed limit minimum sign. This sign informs the road user of the minimum speed limit required in an area, and so drive carefully. This announcement is coming to you from Voice of the People, VOP Television. Now,
All right, so Esther is with me in the studio, and we're also being joined by Cyril Abaku, VOP political analyst. Good morning to you, Cyril.
Good morning.
All right, so now let's get straight to it. Going into the papers, talking about newspaper headlines. I'm starting off with a Guardian newspaper. This one has the banner headline: Airfares hit new high as foreign airlines settle for 582 naira to $1. And when you go underneath the pictorial there, you have you're replicating Buhari's distasteful foreign medical trips. Rumours tells Tinubu. Darkness looms as TCN moves to disconnect defaulting discos, GenCos. Prosecutorial challenge Politics may set fleeing Adamawa wreck free. Interim government constitutionally forbidden fruit still tempting 30 years after. And we also do have these headline: Sudan crisis, FG to airlift stranded Nigerians via safe routes, warns against treacherous journeys. All right, so those are the headlines that we have from the Guardian newspaper. All right, so Cyril, let's dive into it, shall we?
Sure, we should. You know, the problems of where we are right now is that at the moment we could only be praying that things don't get worse. Usually, when a new government comes into office, they spend the first month, the first 6 months to 1 year settling down, as they say, settling down. Then they manage to spend the next 2 years, you know, undertaking governance. Oh no, let's say first year settling down, second year finding their feet. Then the third year, they manage to, if they govern anything, is between the second and third. By the start of the third year into the fourth is re-election. So basically, they always need now you have a government that's almost all the stories we are reading. Fares are on the increase. Whatever, you know, so
this government is inheriting problems.
No, of course they are. But the fact is that with only how many days to go, you know, what are you going to expect? It's house cleaning that should be. But so real government, or real governance is 0 to nothing, as far as the way I see it.
All right. Let's go on to another daily.
So on the Daily Trust, we have as a banner headline there, 96% of female candidates crash out 2023 elections. 1,553 vie for positions, 72 win. Women clinch 3 Senate, 14 reps, 48 state assembly seats. Money, culture, religion against us candidates. It's a disaster for political inclusion, and that's by Carrie. Those are the major headlines on the front page of the Daily Trust. Okay, so we have a particular scenario where you can hear the females actually giving their...
they don't have to cry blue mother. It's a waste of time.
The blue mother.
It's a waste of time. Here's what they do, okay? We've had groups like Yaga Africa,
yes,
pushing for innovation in the electoral space. Did they get something? Of course they did. They came close in 2019. They got something in 2023, right? You have other groups, CSOs and so on, public interest group making a case for different things. The National Council of Women Societies, FIDA, and a group should come together to say we want independent candidates in the electoral process, so that the party echelons, the hegemons, will no longer lord it over them to say until you come for one midnight meeting, you won't be our candidate.
Sure.
No, but I mean, women can champion that cause. It doesn't cost a thing. Go around the markets, talk to the lodgers, go around, you know, gather and say, the only way women can aspire and succeed is if they run by themselves. In a manner of speaking, P2B didn't even run on a party per se. P2B, yes, it was more of his personality. Yes. And I told friends, I said, if you're going to get a good man to be president of Nigeria, he cannot become that thing on the platform of any of the big parties. He will have to be a man who makes a name for himself and on the strength of his own character, like Dora Akunyili, like Jennifer Wemi, like P2B, for example, and maybe go and pick one of the lesser known parties, so that there will be little room for settling on of godfathers, party bigwigs, party stalwarts, party interests, and so on. Let him stand on his own. The person thought I was joking. Some months later, P2B, I mean, when I was even saying those things, I didn't know of any P2B thing. Suddenly P2B came on. People who, a bike rider, a vigilante member, you know, this kind of things, and they're winning elections. Why? It's a phenomenon. Women can stand their ground and say, we want to run outside of the party. You believe you have the money. Or, no, not even money. You believe you have the integrity, the character, the strength, the experience, and everything. Sell it to the people who vote for you. Leave the party.
Do you think our culture and tradition actually plays a huge role, because it seems to be like a patriarchy kind of system?
It is not necessarily patriarchy. Some Nigerian societies are actually matriarchal. Let me tell you where I come from. If your father doesn't pay the full value the full marital,
Right.
yeah. So I think marriage is is in 3 stages. If you doesn't marry your mother to the last stage, all your children here belong to the woman.
Wow.
Of course. And if you want to now go and perform those rites after the children are grown, it will count as you marrying each child one after the other. Let me tell you something. It happened to Goodluck Jonathan. He's from my place. By the time he came to marry, because they were already, and of course, he was deputy governor. They made him build the house.
That's interesting.
Please, let's come in from. So they said that because she's a woman, she would not. It's not the issue. Women, it should be they believe that they can achieve it. Why will you contest in the first place if you don't think that you can bring them to the table? If you believe you can achieve it, say that you bring ran on PDP. She got only 1 vote. There are women in the party. She got only 1, which means she alone voted for herself. Okay.
And the women didn't even support her.
But if Jubril believed that she had what it took to rule Nigeria, can she bypass the party and appeal to the Nigerian voter directly and say, hey guys, I know? Because sometimes the men have sponsored the parties, they've done a lot of things, and then a lady comes from some
pedigree. They will need to have a pedigree.
The women.
Yes.
Oh well, of course, it's personal. It's private. Go and build it.
In the case of Binani,
it doesn't have to take. Oh, please hold on. You see stories of women who are now vice chancellors. There are about 6 of them or so. No, I mean there. The running mate to Governor Fintiri. After the brouhaha and the drama and everything, his running mate was the former vice chancellor of the state university who resigned to be his running mate. Is that okay? That's good ground already.
Okay.
So if tomorrow she wants to run for governor and the party says we can't, they won't say it openly. They may tell you have to pay this, you have to do that, and you're seeing that you're not getting the critical support you should be getting from party leaders. Can she now step out and say, you know what, having been deputy governor, nothing stopping from becoming governor also, and sell her candidates? The issue of building your capacity, building your character, people knowing you, is up to you. Go and work on that. Politics is about service. Go to your village, build a school. Go to your village, pave a road. Go to your village. You go to meetings of the main parties every weekend. They're sharing rice and bread and milk. And they call it structure. Peter came and said it. In fact, we don't give chichi. People believed in him. I don't know if I'm not communicating well. So man or woman, if Nigerians believe that you have what, if an Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala came to contest for presidency, do you think they won't vote for her?
Of course they will.
I think they will. So it's about working on yourself and your image. If you know the price to pay and you pay it, I think people they won't care at that point whether where Nigeria is today, whether a man or woman comes. As far as we believe that you have what it takes, I think they will back you up, because we're in a serious mess.
Now you're going to say in the case of
Binani, I think the issue was the party she belonged. Because to be honest with you, during the first, that's on March 18, before they had the supplementary, there was this rally, there was this support. A lot of persons could actually feel they were happy that there was a female who was running for the governorship.
I think I disagree with you. I don't think it was about the party.
No.
I think it was about the process.
The process and, of course, the party. Why I said so is this. If Binani was in the PDP or any other political party, there's a strong tendency that she would have won in Adamawa State. Because she had a lot of sympathy, let me not use the word sympathy, but a lot of women actually voted for her. They wanted that barrier to be broken.
Well, whether it's that simple, I think that Binani's sympathies now actually came externally. They came because a lot of us thought this should be.
Yes,
but I think that
emerge.
Yes, but I think that it's not as simple as you want to make it look. That husband and wife are going out to vote, and in Adamawa State, a woman will have the courage to vote against what her husband is voting for, assuming that it was the men who voted for him into power. But I do think that having now come to, because of what happened with the Hudu Harry guy and some of us now began to pay some close attention to what happened in Adamawa. Actually, it was the APC knew that it was an uphill task to unseat the PDP, to unseat the Fintiri in Adamawa State. I think they actually knew. If, in all sincerity, it was clear when everything was going smoothly, when Binani was in the lead, until those votes from the local government, I think 2 or 3 of them came in, and it now showed that Fintiri was in the lead. There was no evidence to nail the PDP. They saw it clearly. And from nowhere, we heard that the elections were not to be declared inconclusive. So, what you see, what the people who know that they are winning always say one thing. They will say, allow the process to play out. That's when they know that they are winning. And that was what Fintiri kept on saying. Allow the process play out. It was the other side that didn't want
the process
to play out and got so desperate to the point of saying of getting a rec to announce the outcome. So I mean, she will live to fight another day if she's not found complicit in what in what went wrong. But we want a case where, and let me also say this: Binani does not represent. What happened in Adamawa does not make me think that women are like that. It doesn't. This is Binani's own case. Yes. I think she owes yes, she owes Nigerians an apology. She owes women an apology. Okay, and I believe that women have something very significant to offer this country. They've done it before, and I believe that they can do it again.
They can do it again, indeed.
All right, we can go on the daily.
All right, so yeah, let's get on with the Punch newspaper now. The Punch newspaper has a banner headline focused on Sudan conflict. It says Sudan conflict evacuation begins today as FG releases 150 million naira, hires 40 buses. Federal government opposes night road trip. Logistic hiccups delayed Tuesday's planned evacuation. 3 Nigerian embassy officers escaped death following attacks by Sudan's rapid support forces. All right. On top of the nameplate, we have NAS leadership, Tinubu, NWC meet contestants. FG, US firm, sign MOU on $15 billion rail project. Buhari president-elect, governors mourn renowned journalist Nahoro. And now there's this pictorial that shows buses in a flooded road, people pushing them. Oh, that's the reality now, because
that's the Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway.
A lot of roads have been left, uncompleted, and drainages are blocked. So yes, the rains are coming on heavy, and that's the reality of the moment. Another headline underneath that pictorial: ex-presidential candidate asks court to stop May 29 inauguration. Assault: police to prosecute spare parts dealer. CP fires DPO. FG cuts power firms from national grid. Those are the headlines from the Punch newspaper. Cyril.
We live in interesting times. Did you say a court was asking the federal government to stop the inauguration or what?
An ex-presidential candidate.
Ex-presidential candidate.
Asked the court to stop May 29 inauguration.
No, we shouldn't joke with these things. People thought that Babangida annulled June 12 because he felt like annulling it. Even if it was government's wish, whatever it was. Somebody went to court. I've said it before that somebody went to court and got an injunction of court saying the elections should be annulled. The court granted the annulment injunction. Babangida took it and said, government cannot fold its arms and not obey the court, as it were. He didn't appeal to say, no, we've held the election, so allow us go. He didn't appeal because obviously that injunction played into his hands. Is that okay? None of the SDP people also appealed that injunction. They just let it stand, and Babangida went ahead and all the elections. Now, when you see these things, you see, because the fact is that, so if the court grants, I don't see it granted, but if the court goes ahead to grant that injunction, because one of the other headlines was saying that it's a forbidden fruit, but that it doesn't seem to be wanting to go away. If the court now goes ahead to grant that injunction, we may run into a tailspin. And we don't want that, for goodness sake. We don't want it. I think that the political class ought to call itself to order. And to say that democracy must, no matter what, the election outcome between Gore and George Bush was highly questionable. The Florida recount and everything that happened is fine. But Gore said no, he wasn't going to do more than what he had done, and that it was okay. He wanted to allow it because America was stronger than his own personal aspiration. Why don't we elect presidential candidate who is not even in court, perhaps? You most likely didn't come first, second, third. I'm not even sure if you ran in 2023. And you're now going to court to say who is using you, you know? So I think that I pray the court strikes at that whatever. and says it is already dead on arrival. Frankly speaking, because we must save our country.
All right, so the federal government has released 150 million naira, hired 40 buses, discouraging night trip. Now, the question I want to ask, in as much as we do know that money is needed, was it this money that they were waiting for all this while before the evacuation begins? Because when they were talking about processing, speaking with the Sudanese embassy, asking them to give them a proper coordination on how they can evacuate the Nigerian students who are stranded there, the federal government released 150 million naira. Is it this money they were waiting for all the while?
Well, first of all, we're talking about evacuation. So there must be the evacuator who carries out the evacuation. So before there's an evacuation, there has to be an evacuator. Who is the evacuator? The evacuator is Nigeria. Who is Nigeria? I think we need to start by saying that Nigeria is not at the moment the giant of Africa. We may be a very tall human being, but standing on clay feet, we are not anything close to being the giant of Africa. That's one number. So we are wobbling. We're wobbling.
Okay.
If you are going to undertake an evacuation and you are now going to resort to bus.
Now, let me interrupt you there. You see, I like to be fair.
Okay.
Now, I like to be fair. Nigeria is not the only country that's had a problem evacuating its people from Sudan. Even great countries like the US have had a problem. Now, you can't use the airports because the airports have been blown up. The runways have been blown up. Envoys and embassy workers that were evacuated by the US were evacuated by the military aircraft that doesn't need a runway to land. It can land and take off sideways. All right, so the US evacuated its embassy workers first, but the citizens were still there. Now, the fightings, the RSF were targeting
The airplane.
villages and people. The roads were not pliable because they wanted to make a statement and affect every country who has its people in Sudan. Now, because of the ceasefire that they have agreed to now,
Those 72 hours.
yes, so they are saying, okay, you can now use the roads. If you cannot use the airports and the seaports are not, we don't have that strength there, we can use the roads and get to Egypt. And from Egypt, they will be airlifted back to Nigeria. So I think using the roads is not a terrible thing, because even the US are moving by road.
No, okay. You done?
Yes, I am.
You're not being fair.
Don't be fair.
At what point did we initiate our own evacuation protocol? That's the first question that we're going to ask. Sudan is just behind us here. They are our friends, they are our neighbors. Are you aware that more than half of those who are schooling in Sudan from Nigeria are there on scholarships by governors from the northern states?
Okay, yes.
Okay, because Sudan, from what I now come to see, is some sort of religious haven for our people. So this is something that we could have escaped. It's something that we could have easily walked out of. We started reading Tanzania, Uganda, working to get our people out. Nigeria had not uttered the first word
Until there were clamors on via the press before we had a response.
So this is the issue. I think it's more about our attitude, about who we are, about our approach to this matter.
Okay.
We had this discussion on Monday. Whether it's by road, whether it's through the bush, whether it's through the air, land or sea, it's not even the issue for me. But if this option was going to be available, I just now we were talking about 150 million naira. I don't know whether we're buying buses that will drive into Sudan to carry people away, or we've hired people that are going to do the transportation for us, whatever it is. We want our people to be out of Sudan safe, hale and hearty. But quite frankly speaking, if you talk to those who are on the ground, they will tell you that help didn't come and should have come. So we read this in the papers over and over again.
So the question now I want to ask is, for example, the same body language was witnessed during, South Africa's xenophobic attack. The same body language was witnessed too with Nigerians who were stranded in Ukraine when the war broke out there. And then, of course, we're seeing the same body language with Sudan. Now, for South Africa and Ukraine, one would understand they are not our backdoor neighbors. So the proximity is definitely not there. So they will say, okay, there is a process to begin to initiate evacuation or airlifting. But for Sudan, that is very close, right? Why that time? Why take all this time? If the press hadn't clamored, if there had been no talks via Twitter, we may not even have seen this immediate response.
Is what I'm saying. Our foreign minister, there's the chairman of the Diaspora Commission, there is the presidency. We didn't hear anything. It was papers like Daily Trust that, because I mean, they kept on. There was a particular time somebody said they were surrounded by these people. And that they didn't feel safe. They knew. Are you aware now that in Sudan, the RSF has taken over a place where a laboratory where deadly pathogens are being researched?
Yes.
Do you know the implication of this? I'm very sure that superpowers are looking forward to knowing what is it really being researched. And if, God forbid, there's anything coming out of that place, Nigeria will not also be and let me come to the heart of the matter, because we shouldn't gloss over it. How are you who you are as Nigeria? This kind of thing was brewing. Didn't we see it coming? Are we Africa giants for nothing? Couldn't have played a role in making sure that this thing No, it's true.
It's funny when you talk about
the African Union, actually.
Because we have our own problems here, and we are almost going into war.
We were watching when Omar al-Bashir was taken out. We were watching when the doctors and those people on the streets came to. We were watching when those were deposed. We've just been watching. Nigeria doesn't look like we have done anything serious to play a role in what was going on. Meanwhile, when we talk about it, do you know that in 1980 something, I can't pick the year now, or maybe in the early 90s.
1989?
No, 89 was when al-Bashir came to power. But I think it was after then, when Osama bin Laden was on the run. One of the places that was before 9/11 actually. Okay. When bin Laden was on one of the places he came to take refuge in was in Sudan. Many people don't know. So you are looking at Sudan as your neighbor, but you need to also discern what Sudan really is. How is it that our assets in that place could not? Is it that we knew and we kept quiet? So it's more than even the students. It's about Nigeria's strategic interest as a regional power. How do we relax and watch? So something is about to happen in Benin Republic, we'll fold our hands and be watching.
But what about the African Union?
Something is about to happen in Chad, we'll fold our hands and be watching. What's happening in Sudan is beyond African Union, my sister. Don't even bother yourself going there. What Sudan is has become a theater for proxy war, and it will be difficult to bring it to an end. It will be very difficult to end this one in Sudan.
And it's obvious the superpowers are trying to see which of the forces they can back.
Russia, China, listen, the RSF is in part of Khartoum. The military government is, the government has said that until the RSF leaves the capital, they will not sit down and talk with them. That they have no basis, no power, no place to negotiate as an equal entity. Meanwhile, even in the Sudanese press, they don't refer to the RSF leader as Dagolo. They refer to both parties by their nicknames. It's a personality or Hemeti. That's the head of the rebel forces. Then the press. So this is purely.
So it feels like these two factions are the ones in charge in Sudan.
Yes, they are. And if we want to continue this conversation, we'll eat into the time for the other show. So we'll go on to the next thing. That is fine. The next segment that we have up next on VOP this morning. After spending more than a month in Europe, President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu looked to have put on some vibrancy. But questions are coming up as to his well-being, his health. Now, we'll talk about that in a moment. Stay with us.